Everybody always thinks that Europeans don't have money and that we can't invest in our future because we don't have the funds. There's just one problem with that assumption. It's wrong. In fact, Europeans aren't short on money. We're sitting on more savings than almost anyone on earth. But what we're doing with it might be our biggest mistake. Currently, we save around 13% of our income per year over year, compared it to people in the US. They're currently only saving 8% of their annual income. So you would think that Europe would be the richest continent by now. But here's the catch. All that money that we save, we put into low interest bank accounts. Since 2009, US household wealth has grown 3 times faster than Europe's, even though Europeans consistently save more. And if Europe invested just like the US, up to 8 trillion could be unlocked right now for our future growth. And another 350 billion per year would be added to our investments each year. To put it into perspective, in 2024, European startups received $62 billion in funding, compared to $209 billion for American startups. So that's a $147 billion gap. In other words, the 350 billion per year could fill that gap more than twice. That way, we could fund the continent's next generation of tech leaders, green innovators, and high-growth companies. And it's not impossible, because countries like Sweden and Denmark already invest a bigger share of their savings in the market, just like the people in the US. So why isn't all this money currently moving into European investments? Well, it's complicated, but there are 3 main reasons. First of all, is the fact that it's expensive. Fees on European mutual funds are often 60% higher than the ones in the US. And also, there's a lot of tax to be paid. Countries like France, Italy, Germany, Spain, and Sweden have capital gains taxes that are between 25 to 30%. The second reason is that we don't actively need to invest to have a good quality of living. Through high taxes, we fund social programs that provide everybody with a reasonable standard of living. That is, of course, great, but it means we don't like to risk our money, and that's problematic for our future. And third is that when our money does move into investments, it often moves into the wrong direction. For example, 44% of the funds European investors hold are currently invested in US stocks, and not into European ones. Investing in Europe is also quite complicated. I've already talked about this before, but investing in startups or scale-ups in Europe is almost impossible because of how many different rules we have depending on the country that you're in and the company that you're trying to invest in. Now the question is how we can easily unlock this capital and put it to European use. And that's why Lagarde wants to come up with a European saving standard that will basically make it easier for everyday Europeans to invest into their own continent. Think of this saving standard as a set of investment products that are designed for you and me. They are simple to use, transparent, affordable, and trusted across borders without bringing in any difficult regulation. Even though it's a good thing that the European Union is trying to make it easier to invest in Europe, I still think a mindset shift is needed. Because, as I said, most of the times Europeans are very safe with their money. But this is not to the benefit of our future. So, instead of asking, what can Europe do for my money? I think Europeans should ask, what can my money do for Europe? We can move savings into long-term investment products, we can explore funds that support European startups or tech, and we can make our money work instead of having it sit idle in a bank account. Sure, regulatory change will help and it will make it easier for us. But the first step is on us, the savers, to actively invest our money into the future of Europe where it's so desperately needed.